going with my sharing. So just give me a minute. Okay.
Recording just started, everybody. Thank you.
Okay. So first up, right? I'm assuming that all of you are at least at this code lab that's out there. The link should be there. So just maybe give me a show of hands or some way by which I'll know that we're ready to go. All looking good. Fair enough. Thanks. All right. So what we're going to be doing today is probably a mixture of many things. Of course, at the top of that list would be to just understand a bit of how we can use Duet AI in multiple ways. Specifically in this one, it's going to be about taking an application, maybe helping us out across various, I would say, typical tasks that a developer does. So what that means is, you're not just coding all the time. You might end up even saying, can you explain me some part of the code? So you might either generate some code, complete some code. You might even want at times code explanations on certain parts of code snippets that you thought you knew, but probably you just want a little bit more of a refresher sort of thing. So that's one kind of activities that you do, right, while you're developing apps for Google Cloud. But you can also be involved in other kinds of, I would say, tasks. So for example, someone says, okay, you got this app running, everything looks good. Why don't you deploy that to, let's say a Cloud Run, which is what we're going to be doing in that case. So the point is now, how do I deploy this? Is there like a G-Cloud command for it? Obviously, there is one. But then we can either look up the documentation, or better still, now you've got this AI assistant, Duet AI, which can help you. So maybe we'll also see a few ways by which you can ask different questions. What's a G-Cloud command to do X, Y, Z? And then we'll take the command from there and, try and complete our task. So obviously what we're going to be seeing is like one application, in this case, a Java Spring Boot application that talks to BigQuery, gets some data and sort of retrieves and displays that data. Nothing much over there, but we're going to be seeing a bit of how Duet AI comes along the way. Plus, what we'll also be seeing towards the end is an interesting aspect where you'll see that it's not just Duet AI for developers, where you do some of those things that I mentioned around code completion, generation, etc. But also, if you are someone who's responsible for running the application in Google Cloud, or you're responsible for the deployment. So obviously, things are not always perfect. There might be some error or two that's happening. And typically your first port of call would be the logs. So we'll see that, how do we go to Logs Explorer? Maybe you've already done that in the past if you're using Google Cloud. But specifically, we built something inside of that that helps to understand the log entries. And again, as you would have probably guessed, it's also powered by Duet AI. So we'll take a look at how not just development, but after we've deployed, another aspect of Duet AI, another surface, as we call it, where you can see how you can use Duet AI's help to understand some log statements. So enough talking, let's get going. And remember, at the end of the day, Duet AI is an AI assistant. Let's break down what that means, right? It means that behind the scenes, there is a large language model. Obviously, this language model has been infused with Google Cloud knowledge, so it's best suited when you're working with Google Cloud. But still, the underlying technology is that of a non-deterministic LLM. As a result of that, the queries or the prompts that I give, even if you use a similar prompts, there's a chance or two that you might get a slightly different output. Not just that, even the kind of output that the code lab suggests, you might get it a bit, that varies at times. So be mindful of that. And also that's just the current state of technology that's out there. I mean, there are obviously many other ways to sort of ground it, but in the current form that's GA or available to you, right now, you will see that there is a bit of variance. And I think we mentioned that in the lab that you should expect a bit of variance. That itself is also a way by which you should just probably have at the back of your mind that these answers may not be perfect. Uh, it's also a question of being a healthy skeptic in terms of what the answers come out from these AI models. So always take a second look, and then sort of move from there, improve upon it. You can always ask follow-up questions that make it a bit, refined in terms of the answering. So this is obviously like one of the labs that continues in this whole season. So what the introduction says right now is that we're going to be building out an application which uses at the back BigQuery data set, gets the data, shows it. It's going to be in Cloud Run, and we'll see Duet AI across. I won't get into the details of each of the previous code labs that you might have already done. So primarily, we're going to be looking at this code lab right now that talks about creating a Spring Boot application that interacts with BigQuery. And again, right, if you're not a Java programmer or Spring Boot is or Java Spring Boot combination is not your thing, that's fine. Just sort of bear with it right now, and maybe as an exercise, you can just go ahead and say, hey, let's develop maybe a Python or a Node.js app, and then you take your favorite programming language framework for a spin with Duet AI's assistance. It's completely fine to do that too. So I'm assuming first part is okay. We're going to be building out an app, and of course that's what we're going to be seeing next. Which is what you'll be building. Obviously, you can use an existing BigQuery data set which you built as part of an earlier code lab, but it's completely up to you. Here you'll also see that we are using a public data set in BigQuery, which is a large internet based database of books. But a public data set in BigQuery has been available, so we'll just use that to sort of fetch information from, and we'll just display that on a page. The idea is to sort of just see some interactions with Duet, and then eventually deploy this on a Cloud Run. Of course, you might not see another step that says we'd also do a bit of what it means to see your logs in Logs Explorer, use Duet AI for that. So we'll see a little bit of that. Third step, I'm assuming you've been part of the earlier both seasons and the sessions that have been in let's say maybe this season right now. So you've got some of these things in place, and as Abhi has mentioned, we are assuming at this point you have your project that's already created, if you provisioned or redeemed the credits, etc. So I'm also going to kind of assume to some extent that you are able to navigate yourself across the whole Google Cloud Console and related tools. So what do we have first? So obviously we're going to be moving to the Cloud Shell and the editor that's out there. So follow these instructions to make sure that you are in the right project. That's important. So if I go to my Google Cloud Console, just let me know if oops, you see all my files. That's okay. No problem. So is this font okay? Do you folks want yeah, okay. All right. So I'm in Google Cloud Console, and maybe this is something that you should be also seeing, though I've already opened the Cloud Shell and Editor, in the section below that you see from this point here. And again, I'll be showing you a few other things which may not necessarily be each of the lab steps, but that's just to give you an overall flavor there. So obviously, make sure that the first thing, just muscle memory, if you're doing anything with Google Cloud, that you are in the right project. So as you can see, I've already selected my project, and it's not the project name, but the project ID that's important. So note that down, as was earlier mentioned, that's the project you're in. So go ahead and open the Cloud Shell. As per the instructions in the lab, it's clearly pointing out where it is. You can't go wrong, hopefully, except there's another icon which looks probably similar, but it won't harm if you end up clicking any of these. But of course, first go ahead and open up Cloud Shell so that you see the terminal that's come up, and then obviously we'll be going to the editor also. Just make sure that you're in the right project. Obviously here it's all set up, but you can do things like a gcloud config list, which has this little thing called a project ID. So this should be set so that you're authenticated in the right way in the right project when making calls even externally, and that's what is mentioned over here. You can actually do this, but in case you don't see the project ID, please execute this command because that's important. There's a nice little copy if you want, unless you want to try your luck by typing out all commands, but make sure that the right project is selected. All right, so given that, let's go on to the next step. Now, um, obviously, in the project that I'm using, there is Duet AI that's already enabled. But in case you created the project for the first time, or it's a new project, or have never kind of used Duet AI in that project, you will have to enable it. And enabling that is again similar to the other APIs or services that we have in Google Cloud. So just like how you have to enable, let's say a storage API or a BigQuery API or a Cloud Run or anything else that you're trying. Similarly, we've got a unique name for the Duet AI API, and that's the Cloud AI Companion, googleapis.com. So obviously, there are ways to do this. While the lab here says that you can enable it this way, chances are that if you like to be different, maybe you can see this icon over here called Open Duet AI. So go ahead and click that. And in my case over here, I'll just clear this. Already I have enabled it. That's why I get this chat window. But I'm assuming that in case you see a message that, oh, Duet AI, you need to enable the Cloud AI Companion or whatever it is, go ahead, give your permission, say okay, enable it. And once it takes a few seconds, it's done. You should see a chat window that lets you communicate. So I'll just wait for a few seconds. Just let me know if you've been able to go from, let's say the console, clicked on Duet AI, and then you see this where you can possibly start even putting things like what is, let's say, Google Cloud Run, right? And you'll get an answer. Be patient at times, right? Because that's just the way things are. And you will see that you'll get an answer with related content and everything. So looks okay for most folks. I'm just looking at both screens. That's why you see my head turn. Okay. All right. So that's one. So what this would have done behind the scenes, in case you've gone through this method, is that it would have already done this for you, right, behind the scenes in the project. But in case you still wish to do this, you are free to go ahead and do this command from the terminal itself. That will obviously it's enabled. So, but there's no harm in executing that command again. But in case you've not done it via the UI, then we've given you the command over here that lets you enable it again. Keep in mind, currently it's enabled per project ID. So in case you go to another project and you might find why the chat again telling me to enable the API, that's because in that project, again, you have to go ahead and enable it. It's like using any other API. So this one is different because it has a chat interface out here. So again, this is one surface in which you're seeing Duet AI, which is the Cloud Console. Later on, as we are developing the code lab, will be in the Cloud Shell IDE, and you will see that Duet AI is also enabled there. So that's another surface in which you can, talk to Duet AI. So you have multiple ways of talking, whatever you feel free. There's always a commentary on the web that you have to be in the flow. You should be in the same IDE, not, keep jumping around here, there. It just helps with flow, focus, etc. That's for you to decide. So I'm just telling you different surfaces in which these things are present. So what have we done so far? We've got a project. You hopefully remember the project ID. Cloud Shell is open, and you've got your Cloud AI Companion, which is Duet AI, already set up. Now, since we are going to be using BigQuery, Cloud Run, etc., we need to enable, those APIs also. Now, you might go to the documentation and do something similar to this, which is G-Cloud services enable, whatever be the Cloud Run API, whatever be the BigQuery API. But again, this is the first way by which we are sort of gently introducing a Duet AI, right? Which is like, hey, help me with some G-Cloud command. So you're literally saying, I don't know what's the gcloud command to enable services. Neither do I know the exact service, I would say qualified names that I need to use while doing the service enabling. So why not take the help of Duet AI? Why jump around to maybe search or documentation? Let's see how good or bad it is. But before we fire the command, right, of course, what you could do is, let's say you copy this example, you could go into, the chat that's out there and ask this question. How do I enable the BigQuery and Cloud Run APIs using gcloud command? Let us see the answer, then I'll discuss a few things which just helps you later on with prompts. Okay, so I'm assuming at the same time you're also trying this out, and if not, that's okay. You can just look at what I'm doing. So as you see over here, we've just asked this thing to do it here, and it's come back with saying, okay, for BigQuery API, you need to do gcloud services enable BigQuery, blah, blah, blah. And similarly for Cloud Run, it's given us the command. The nice thing about, let's say, Duet AI, or at least the UI, that is not necessarily Duet AI here, is we've given you this nifty, not just copy, but also, copy to Cloud Shell. Now, why it's vertically looking like that, maybe that's an interesting observation for me right now. I'm not used to like reading it vertical, but that's fine. We can still attempt to do it. So there's copy to clipboard and there's also copy to Cloud Shell. What that does is, if you got your uh, Cloud Shell open, maybe if you just tap it, you'll find that it's copied it over there, and you could simply go ahead and enable both of these APIs. So that's neat. I've already got it enabled. If not, for you, you might see a slightly different message in terms of the operation succeeding. Similarly, here, you could do it in the similar way. Just take it and, go ahead and complete this step. So this is the first way by which you've introduced it. Of course, it's giving you some other answers in case you want to do it like, in a different way. But I just wanted to touch upon prompts over here. And you folks might have heard about prompting and prompt engineering and prompt generation. You can call it whatever you want, but for us, let's keep it simple. It's about a question or a query that you're asking the model and you want to get back the answers. Now, keep in mind over here that BigQuery, Cloud Run are Google Cloud products or service names. Similarly, gcloud is also a very specific product. So you will see over here, and that's one of our best practices also, that when dealing with Duet AI, especially when you're doing things with Google Cloud, one of the tips that I could give you is be very clear which are the products you're talking about. Specify them in the prompts, because when you do that, you do get much more, I would say, detailed or clearer or to the point or specific answers that you're expecting. For example, let's just have a bit of fun and say, instead of gcloud, what if I just said that, how do I enable the BigQuery and Cloud Run APIs, right? Now, could be anyone's guess what's going to come out. Even I don't know, but let's see. So I've not specified gcloud now, right? And when you do that, look, it's giving you a lot more details or multiple ways now. It's telling you, okay, you could either go to the Cloud Console also and get it done this way, or you could use gcloud command, or you could use REST API. So I'm just saying that, keep this sort of aspect in mind. Be more specific with what you're doing. Be very clear on the product. And so be specific, tell them the steps in detail, tell the product names or the services or the tools you want to use, and you'll find that the answers become more specific, and maybe that's exactly what you want. If you don't give it details, it's going to try and guess, be nice, maybe it tries to give you a little bit more than what you expect. Might be useful in some different contexts, but that's just the point. And again, don't ignore that little thing at the down which you see. For best results, use a detailed prompt and the prompt guide. I leave it to you folks. It's a well-written guide. Take a look for any other, you'll see some prompts from us today, but you'll also see that if you did it in a different way, as the prompt guide suggests, you might get some more clearer answers. And at times, you don't have to do follow-ups and things like that. Okay. So I'm assuming at this point in time, and that's a statement I was telling you earlier, LLMs are non-deterministic. So while you're trying these prompts, the response that you get might look different from the ones in my screenshot, or even if you're doing side by side with two people, we have seen it give different answers. So that's okay. Now, so I'm assuming the APIs are enabled. If not, if you don't get the right answer, chances are just make sure that you pick up the ones which you mentioned correctly. So you'll see these labs are very well written in a sense that, especially when it comes to Duet AI labs, because we expect that the answers could be different. So we are also giving you sort of either troubleshooting, you want to call it, or the right guide or the right answer, so you can pick if you want. Next, we're going to be exploring now the BigQuery data set, which we want to eventually, I would say, integrate into the Cloud Run application and display the data. So obviously, as this step sort of mentions, there are like public data sets in BigQuery. And specifically, we are going to be picking up one, which is the Internet Archive books, which you can get. So obviously, you can pick it up. I mean, the links, you can take it from here if you find it. But what I found, quite useful is this documentation page that's out there that even shows you how you can add a public data set to BigQuery. So again, if you want, please go over there and you will see quite a decent write up in detail in terms of how you can go ahead and add public data sets. So the way I would suggest you do it, maybe just for, I'm just demonstrating it, but you can also follow the steps. I'll just close a few things so that it gives us a little bit more space here. So what I'm going, okay, this is all done, so I'll just clear this up. I'm going to go to BigQuery so that we just see what we are dealing with first and displaying. So we'll go to BigQuery, and over here you see this add. You can, of course, take, if you feel you want to take up a different data set, that's fine too. You might just have to change a little bit of the code when it comes to the SQL statement. But okay, let me just come out of this. So I'm on this add button over here. And over here, you can see that, there are various things you could connect to. So you'll see your public data sets out here. So if you click any of these, you will see that there's quite a few of them, including some paid ones, but 200 plus data sets. So let's say Internet Archive ebooks, and over here you will find that that's the particular data set we are going after, and it's giving you some more details, and directly it's saying view this data set. So we could just quickly go there, and you will see that there is this stuff that's opened up. You can even probably see the schema, etc., etc. But quickly, right, you could just go ahead and put in some kind of a query. So does this say anything? Yeah, it also gives you a sample query to try out. So let's take this very quickly. Again, nothing much, right? It's an archive of books which with tremendous amount of data, but we'll be focused on just very simple stuff here. Getting the title, some themes, and maybe some metadata around its text or what it is about. So we go here. Sorry, where was I? Yeah, here. I'm just putting in this query. Let's make it a bit big and run it. Okay, so just make sure, again, here it's not about testing out the SQL query, but just make sure that, you have been able to connect to this database. You are able to at least run this basic query that we have. So can I see a show of hands? Are we sort of here? Looks okay for most folks? Okay. Now, not part of the lab, you may not see this also in your BigQuery. Possibly it's not there. It needs to be enabled in some way. But I'll just give you a little preview. You see this little, like, help me code. The Duet thing, we're going to be integrating in more and more of the Google services, or specifically those pages within the Cloud Console. So in this case, you're in the BigQuery studio. And let's say, I mean, your SQL is as bad as mine, and you say, I don't even understand what this query is about. Obviously, there will be complex queries later on where it will be useful. But let's say in this case, you just say, hey, help me explain this query. See what's happening. There's Duet AI integrated, and I'm explaining, and this is actually the prompt it's created, and it's opened up the same, Duet AI chat. and it's going ahead and picking up your query and saying, hey, so it's hit the Duet AI model and it's coming back with details. So some pretty solid explanation that it gives you. You can even further, ask queries. So of course, code generation, code completion, code explanation within SQL is also supported. Later on, as we get into a GA, you will start seeing, BigQuery help you, sorry, Duet AI help you with some of these tasks also. So it's pretty interesting. This is another surface that I wanted to show out here. We may not see in the lab, but just giving you a preview of that. So we go back to our steps. So I'm assuming you all are all good with this data set. The next step, which is, okay, we know that's the data we want. We just want to somehow, talk to BigQuery, get this data out and display it into the web page. So this step now we start with actually the generation of application template that you could possibly use. So the Spring Boot and Cloud Run and Java and other existing templates, etc., available. So we're just going to be showing you how you can do that. So first up, I'll assume you're still, where am I? Let me see. Did I get lost somewhere? I'm going to go back to my dashboard. Let me go back there. Okay. And let me clear all this up. So I'm right now again back to my Google Cloud Console. I've got the shell. I'm just opening up the editor now. So I'm hoping you all are also able to launch it and you are inside this Cloud Shell IDE that we call it. It will be similar to, you can say, if you've been using Visual Studio Code, it should be similar. It's of course based on a open source code OSS version of the VS Code like stuff. So same extensions, everything, but we've also I would say, installed or set up several things for you out here. So let's first, right, just make sure that we look at what the steps are telling us to do. So before we go actually forward, just ensure that the Duet AI thing is enabled. If you don't do that, it's likely that if you're in the ID and try to ask questions, it's not going to answer because Duet AI is not enabled for your project. So I'm assuming all of those things are are done. Now, once you have the code editor open, which is what it is saying, make sure that the Duet AI logo in the bottom right corner of the editor console is active. And also Google Cloud Project on the bottom left corner should be here. So first up, I apologize for this experience, but it is what it is right now. We'll obviously look forward to this experience getting improved. But at the moment, before we even go forward, there are two things you need to just absolutely ensure are fine on your IDE, without which you will find you're not going to be able to do any of this stuff. So first up, it said, look in the right corner. Then it also said, look in the left corner, bottom right, status bar. So this is what I'm pointing out to you. In the right bottom corner, you see this Duet AI icon. So if you see a cross or is disabled, just make sure that it is enabled. And how do you do that? You will have to do that by selecting a project in which Duet AI is enabled. So in case it's already enabled for you, which case it is done, or most likely not, just click on that and you will see it's saying select a Duet AI project. So just click on the select Duet AI project and you should see, be patient, right? Give it some time. You should see at times a list of projects that are getting selected, and then you should see your project, just select it from that. It's telling me no account, which is funny, but let's see how it goes. But ideally, you should see a list of projects out there. Similarly, on the left side, right here, you already see that the project is selected for me. But in case you see it needs a sign in, just click on that, go to the sign in, make sure you're using the same personal account, click on this. You will see something called select a Google Cloud project. Just select that. And ideally, again, you should be seeing that, right? So let me know if we are okay to, or at least a majority of folks are having both of these things enabled. That's fine. Maybe you've done it from the previous project, so that's important. Now, I'll see if maybe my account has gone off and it's saying no account, but we'll get to it. Don't worry. So you also see now this Duet AI icon in the editor. So if you click that, you should ideally, let's see, be able to ask some questions and do that. Okay, give us a minute to reach there. I'll wait. So you see over here also, similarly, this is another surface. And just like you had in Cloud Console, which was one surface. Then I showed you BigQuery, which is another surface. Now we are into the Cloud Shell ID, and you're seeing Duet AI available as a chat interface within this also. In case you don't see this, just maybe at times, if your fonts are too big, you might see this kind of going into additional views, something like that. So just make sure that you see this Duet AI icon, and that's how you can like get it off. You can even clear the chat if you want to at any point in time. Are we looking good to go forward? If it shows cloud code, no project, and I have no option to sign in there, neither is there a prompt for that. So if you click maybe the sign in, no project, if you click it, do you see at least the screen coming up? You should ideally be seeing this list of options, and then you'll see something called select a cloud project. See, I'm showing you that. Please select that, and that should ideally be bringing up a list of project IDs. The one that you've created right now is the one which you should need to select, and then give it a second or two, and you will see that the name down here, like in this case, is GCP experiments. That's my project ID, but you will see respectively your project name. Are we looking good to go forward? Okay. All right. So this is the setup part. I mean, this is the most difficult part. Rest of it is talking to do it, getting some answers, fighting with it to get the right answers and all of that stuff. But if you cross this step, keep in mind this is how you have to currently make it work even for your other projects or if you're working with a different project. Okay. So let's go back to the lab. So what does the lab tell you? The lab says, let's create a template for, you know, um, the Java Spring Boot application that we want, which can be deployed in Cloud Run, for example. So as you can see over here, it's giving you exact steps, which is, for example, uh, even before you follow, just hold on a bit. If you've already done it, that's fine. But just wanted to show you a way by which you could possibly have even asked Duet to give you those steps. But again, the steps say click on GCP experiments, click on new application, click on Cloud Run, click on specifically Java in this case, and then give a folder, etc., etc. Right? But what if you could even maybe I'll just try some prompts, see how good or bad it does. You could say I'm using Cloud Shell ID and I'm using the Cloud Code extension. Um, Give me the steps to create a new application template for, let's say, Cloud Run. Let's try. Let's see what it comes up with. I'm just trying to see even ways by which it's working. So obviously here it's giving you some guidance. May not be the right thing because it might have got confused with some names. You can always modify the prompt if you want a bit more. But in this case, it's telling you go this Cloud Code icon, click on the new application. So the custom, maybe you could probably change it's giving you the custom ones, but if you change the prompt, probably it'll get to the exact steps. So feel free sometimes to use it even for tasks like this. But having said that, let's go ahead now as per what the code lab says, which is we're going to be doing a new application, Cloud Run application. We're going to be selecting Java. We're going to be selecting a specific folder in which you want it, and then you should see a specific I would say folders and files and everything created. So let's do that. So I'm in GCP. I've clicked that Cloud Code icon down. I'm going to do new application. I'm going to do Cloud Run, Java Cloud Run. And let's say, what does it tell me? Hello World 1 is not a good name. Let's say bookshelf-web as the lab says. So bookshelf-web. And I do an OK. So what it's doing behind the scenes is it's downloading the template that we have for a Java Cloud Run application, and it's creating all those files, created a folder for you. and it's going to open up the Cloud Shell editor with that particular folder open for you. So let's wait while it comes up. There we are. And the first thing you should start noticing, or first thing you should start before you do anything, is you would have noticed that hey, the Duet AI icon seems to have gone a bit in a different kind of a state. Has it got disabled? You can even see from my screen that the cloud code sign in has also sort of forgotten. So right now there are these little issues that are there, but again, just as I told you, you do anything, just make sure that these two things are set up correctly. So we'll once again click on Duet AI. It's saying not signed in, don't know why, but we'll just select it. So it just picks up a few things, and there you go. It's set up that, and it's picked up the project also. So just make sure that these things are running. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to ask questions out of it. So what do we have now? We've got a standard Spring Boot application template, an instance of which is created for you, or a copy of which is created. Nothing much happening right now in this application, but that's the whole purpose. So it's like empty out here, just starts up, and then in the controller, it's got nothing. It's just got one, of course, not nothing. It's got something. It's going to the root and just root basically the path. So anyone hits that URL is going to return an index page. Index page is present in the resources, templates, and it uses time leaf and other things to maybe pick up some values that were set up in the model, like revision and service name and things like that. So that's okay. We're not too concerned right now about this. Now, what does the next step say? It says you got all of this, you're good to deploy the application, but that's not why we started this, right? We need to still put in that functionality that we were thinking of picking up from BigQuery and displaying it on the web. So what we have in the next step is obviously things that are going to start doing development. So we'll see in step 7, which is next, that hey, we need to have the BigQuery, you can say library, in our application. So since this is using Maven and it's got the pom.xml, you need to specify what's the dependency. So one is you look up, you figure it out, or maybe we ask, Duet AI in this case, that hey, what could be the dependency? So entirely up to you how you want to do it. We've even given the code in step 8, which sort of gives you the code. You can work with Duet AI to make it generate the code also, but we will see what we can do. But before we do 7, right, I just wanted to display a few features of Duet AI, and then we sort of go ahead and do these things. So first up, right, remember, as a developer, you've got some templates. You might want to ask, like, what is this code about? I don't maybe understand parts of it. Can I get some help on any aspect of the code? So for example, if you are in this particular file and someone says, what does this annotation really do? So you could literally like select this, and or in other words, let's say this whole file, right? What is it? So open up Duet AI, right, which is over here. You are in the particular file, which is the current file that's open. All you need to do is something like explain this, and you will find that it will take that context, which is the current file that's open, and it's giving you some, neat, detailed explanation of what this thing is about. So this is one way by which you can get on anything, whether it's code or even configuration. For example, Docker file, right? Now, either you can say explain this whole thing, or you may say, yeah, I don't seem to understand what this command CMD thing really does in Docker. So you could either select it and do explain this, or you see this little, light bulb coming out there. You click it, you see and explain this. And when you do this, it's going to just look at that command thing and give you some more detailed explanation on what that means. So use this at any point in time to, get some code explainability at any place, any file. At times, you can even ask follow-up questions, to this. So it's a good way by which you can get acquainted. Sometimes people have this, cool way of writing some code, and you might say, I don't understand what this does. Just take that snippet and say, explain this. And it's a good way to even learn some ways people write code. So that's one sort of a thing that we have over here. You could even ask it to generate some documentation. You could even ask it to generate some code, for example. So just as a very quick thing, maybe you are in the controller, right? And over here, there's just one particular thing to the root. You might just end up saying, hey, sorry, I get confused about the comments and in different programming languages. So as a comment, you can actually, or let's put it this way. You opened up this, it depends what your style is. So if you like to chat here, you can just say, write a new, let's say, get mapping that, let's say, uh, that returns page one HTML. I'm just giving something that just comes to my mind, or you can just return some other data or whatever it is. See what it comes up with, right? So you will find that it starts giving you the actual code that you could potentially use at any point in time. You could just be in that right spot and do an insert in current file, and it's going to come up. But you can copy it also, or do some follow-up things, or you could even do something like generate a new, let's say, get mapping that returns a list of inventory items, just something. And you could like the shortcuts also, which I'm demonstrating. See that generating suggestion, and now it gives you a few things that you can try out, right? And so again, it's completely up to you how and what you would like to sort of accept in the code, but just showing you multiple ways in which you can do that. Similarly, if you got something of this sort, and you can just be here and say, explain this, or if that's the style you like it. There's so up to you how you want to do that. So let's get going with some of the things that we had in our lab, which is the first thing. We needed to add dependencies. If you've already done it, is fine, but you can actually go in the POM file directly. Sometimes I prefer to do it outside because it gives you a little bit more, and you might just not be in the right place and accept it. So you can do whichever way is comfortable for you. So for example, if I just take this question, what Maven dependency should I take for BigQuery? Let's say if I just enter over here, and sometimes, like, up to you. You should always keep some of this context as open, because that's used then by Duet to then sort of give you better answer. It's basically grounding them or taking them towards a certain direction. So over here, we can say what Maven dependency should I include? Let's see what answer it comes up. Always keep in mind, do check the answers a little bit if you know what you're doing. So you can't say, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll just depend on them to generate the code for me, etc. So it's a nice answer here. Of course, see, when you give the question in the chat, you're going to get a lot more detail. If you're going to do this inside of the ID, you're going to get some very specific things. So just be sure where you are. So for example, here it tells you to go into the dependency and put the code there. You could do it that way too. So over here is telling you here is possibly a Maven dependency. It's also giving you some way by which you can start, doing a little hello world or get going. So I'll just take maybe this part of it. Hopefully com google.com cloud BigQuery, is that the one that's suggested? Looks decent. So in case you get some weird answer, chances are quite less, but just in case you do, you can just take the example from here. So I'll just take this one. And what are we saying? We need to, do this here. Now, oops, let's do all this. Now, you see over here, you'll be wondering at times, like, why this squiggly kind of a line, right? Now, the thing is, this is one of the very interesting features of Duet AI, which is called code citation. And code citation is, we've got a recitation checker. So if we have used permissible code to, let's say, train our models, and when you ask this prompt or ask this question, and if the model recites things as is from a possible repository where it could be present, we're actually pointing it out to you. So here, if you see, right, it's telling you use this with caution, because it could be subjected to a license. They're telling you what the license is, so you can actually go there, make a decision, etc., etc. In our case, we'll keep it simple. The quick fix is obviously like, taking a shortcut. It's quite, humorous. So ignore the warning, right? So we just ignore it and we get going for it. But this is a very, I would say, serious feature in a sense that most organizations want to be very clear where their sources, where the code that we are producing and giving to them to include in their code bases, is it under a certain license or not? Is it permissible? Some organizations may simply say no open source license of the Apache style, in which case you get these warnings and you can then make a decision. So now that all this is in place, we'll go to the next step, which is updating the source to get the bookshelf data. Now I would completely leave it to you as an exercise. Maybe you should do this a bit maybe after this lab, just as a practice, that we are actually giving you the code here to um, put inside the hello world controller, and you will see it's straightforward. We are just firing the particular SQL command, and then there's a BigQuery job that's running, getting the data. We're iterating through these results, and it's this particular query that you're seeing over here, the one similar one that we fired. But as you can see, it's the same book database, and we're just picking up the title and joining it with the themes out there. And that's the summary column that we are getting out there. So nothing major, except we're just telling you take this code, but you could like probably play with Duet and say, give me code to talk to a BigQuery, or run a BigQuery job which runs a query and gives back a result. You can actually try it on C. You might get almost similar like code. So what I'll do for now is I'm going to take this in interest of time and put it into our controller, which you see over here. So let's be careful here what we are doing. So we've got cloud code, hello world. I'm just making sure some of those things are fine. Okay, so let's take this sample and let's replace it. Okay, so we are done. Again, if you don't understand some aspects of it, why don't you just say, probably say like, take this and maybe say, explain what's happening in this, or maybe take that whole snippet and then explain what's happening in that. So you can get some different granularity or details if you want to. Now, we are doing okay on time, right, folks? Just want to ask that.
Yes, Roman, we are good with the time. Just a quick check. Everyone is following until this step, right? Cool. Show of hands, please. All right. We are good, Roman. We have until 9:30. Yeah.
Sure, thanks. So as you can see here, right, again, I'm just reusing the whole code explanation thing, but feel free to do that. Yeah, and it'll be interesting as an exercise if you want to say, look, I'll not copy this code, but I will probably use Duet to sort of build out this code step by step, right? So you can do it in step by step. There's a whole approach to doing prompting where you tell it first generate me some part of code, then say now please add exception handling to it, or add some other case to it, etc. So do it in steps, and you will find that you'll be able to build out quite a bit of code directly with Duet's help. Now, so now that we've got this, what does the code lab say? It tells you a few other things that you should do. Of course, since we have sort of updated some of these things, it's telling you to possibly, hide out some of the test scenarios because we'll see why. So we are at this explore. We are at all of our files. Let's look at the test case, right? So in the tests, what do we see here? We see here that there was only one test, because when the template was generated, you find that there was one single test out here, and that was just hitting the root and retrieving back the service and revision. But as you know, we went in, we have changed the controller now to something else altogether. So obviously, if you go through all those typical lifecycle methods, you will find the tests are likely to fail. So it's just telling you to comment this out so that we are good to at least move forward with it. So that's the part here. Just wanted to explain why we are telling you to do this in the first place. Obviously, there's also this fact that you can use Duet to also generate test cases. So if you're adventurous enough, you could at times be in your specific controller. If you've got several methods, you could end up saying, generate unit tests and see what it comes up with. Or if you got specific, I would say, scenarios or edge cases, you can even talk about that, and it will generate out some code, eventually for you. So again, I'm not saying this is in the lab, but I'm saying these are the things you could also try out. And you can see it's creating some mocks, giving you the code for it. So it's pretty neat. Just take a look later on, that you can use it for, even generating test cases. So coming back to this, we've seen a bit of like what Duet AI for code explanation is. So you could go at any of these files. It's giving you some 2, 3 things you can try out. Going to certain parts of the code you don't understand, you can do and explain this. You could also ask questions in a different way. So for example, right, this particular line which is there in code. So let's say, where are we? Okay, something of this sort, right? Let's say is this line, and you could possibly say, what if the BigQuery variable is null? What will happen? I don't know. You can ask that. I'm just saying, in times you can ask sort of different questions. So, for example, here, if it's null, obviously, that rest of the things might typically fail, but it gives you a pretty decent, I would say, explanation in some way. And maybe it's also telling you, hey, maybe you should have checked it, right? So things like how could I make my code more secure? How could I refactor it? How could I improve this code? You can even ask suggestions like that. So you can even say, like, how do I improve this code? And who knows, it will come up with a suggestion like how it's doing here, that maybe instead if it was null, you could have possibly raised some exception from here itself. So feel free to use it in these ways also, because Duet is, as I told you, don't get restricted to what you're seeing right now in the labs at times. Remember, you could use it up for code generation, completion, explanation, test cases, documentation, improving your code, refactoring it, all of that stuff, right? So, and of course, it's even giving you see some modified code. Take a look sometimes at these sort of things. There are some questions around add dependencies to use BigQuery in web app. Can you again tell me this? I think if you just go to step 7, it's clearly mentioned. For now, just for the sake of moving forward, we've provided you the dependency entry that you need to make in the POM file. So just make sure you copy this, and you will see one file, pom.xml, which is where I've gone and inserted this. So just go ahead and do that. You should be good there. Yeah. Now, uh, possible, I mean, there are some questions I'm seeing, where do you exactly replace the code? You'll just have to be careful as you're using it, because, I mean, at the end of the day, if you're modifying some code, or, you go ahead and insert some code in the wrong places, these things can happen. So I may not be able to debug every single, thing, but maybe just undo, get back to a state. Just be a normal developer. Just assume by mistake you did a control C, control V somewhere, and just recover from that. I can't say exactly what you might have done, but while working with Duet, these things are likely. For example, if you have a suggestion and you are somewhere here, but you see this, let's say, button for insert, and I just come and insert it, right? It's going to like just come out here. So just be careful about some of those things. Yeah. Okay. So now next we were at update the source code, which we've done. So as I said, what if something is null? How do I improve or refactor this code? Check some of these things out. It should be pretty nice to do. Now, we are now at a step where we believe this is like working in some way, right? So just if you want to test it locally, that's what this first part is telling you, that hey, you could just go to your local terminal, go into that folder in which the whole project is present, and then of course these are Maven specific commands that you have to give. You package the whole thing, build the jars, compile, test, jar, all of that stuff. And then, of course, there's also a Spring Boot lifecycle method here that just launches this whole thing. So let's give that also a try over here. So basically, what we have is we've just got our code where it goes and fetches it from the BigQuery table. So hopefully things are stable here. I've not made some changes that have completely destroyed a few things, but hopefully it should be fine. So I am at my terminal, which I just launched from Cloud Shell. You could also do it in different ways also, but I'm just from within the Cloud Shell editor. I am present in that folder because these files are all present. So let's see Maven package and just make sure everything is fine first. It may download all the dependencies. Sometimes this could take a while, but hopefully this is a Cloud Shell thing. You're not your network, so hopefully things are okay. So it's running a few things, is building the jar now, and everything looks fine. So once that is done, we could just launch it locally out here via the Spring Boot run method. I mean, if you're comfortable running this from, for example, let's say you're here, right? And you see this Java, Maven, you see some of these sort of methods, not methods, sorry, those life cycle, and then you got the same things, which you could run it directly from the IDE also, but I leave it to you. Like in Spring Boot, we've got the plugins which have been put in the POM file. You will also see the Spring Boot run and other methods. So I'm just showing you so that there's no magic that we are doing. It's basically what's there in the POM file, and you see this run. You could directly do it from here, or as the command indicates. It's nice to know these commands so that you do it again and again. So MVN Spring Boot run. Let's see what happens. Ideally, they should start up on 8080. It should get the server should start. So clear this and let's put this. Let's give it a few more seconds. Everything looks good. Container started successfully, so we should be able to now hit it. Now there's something called a web preview, and the lab also tells that there is a web preview. You see this little icon in the top corner over here of your Cloud Shell. Again, in case you're running it on a different port, if you've done some changes, you can always change the port. Otherwise, by default, 8080, which is what we have now. So that should be fine too. So let's give it a try. Nothing wrong in that. And we go out here and see what happens. There, pretty nice. So as you see, what we've done is, again, don't hold me to the design of this page. Our intent is not to build a beautiful UI, but that could be another exercise you could do. You could actually tell Duet even generate a web front end and see what it comes up, or beautify this, or get stylish, or use some material design. You could try that and it will generate those things for you. But in this case, as you notice, or let me very quickly just reiterate, sorry, over here in the code, all we were doing was when we hit the URL, the root path, this method is getting invoked where we are firing this select query on the Internet Archive books, public data sets, and all the rest of the code is just about, firing up a job. But then once we get the results, we are iterating through each of these results. And you can see that we are retrieving that particular column name, which is summary, right? Which is how we returned it over here. So nothing much. It's giving you back this summary and just then doing of course, here its system out will come over here in the console, but we are returning this as a response string itself. So that's why you are seeing it. So these are actually different publications. So there's this one, methods of teaching, acquisitive, whatever, right? So these are different titles in the data set. So this at least shows us that locally things are fine. And now obviously the step tells us, so let me close this one. We are here. The next step says, cool, we should be now ready to deploy it to Cloud Run. So again, here, as I told you, you may be knowing how to do it in Cloud Run or you may not be knowing. We wanted to illustrate that you could use Duet AI also to deploy this thing. So it says, what's the gcloud command to deploy the app to Cloud Run without having to containerize it, only by giving source files. So obviously, you might say we are doing a bit of cheating over here by sort of, leading Duet AI to give us the Cloud Run, run deploy command. But again, this is fine because you're describing your requirements in a natural language. Remember, gcloud run deploy may come with so many options. It can even deploy from a container image. It can even deploy from a source file directly without you needing to containerize. So while I said that we are probably prompting it to go in a direction, that's fine because that's exactly what we wanted to do. And we're just hoping that there is a way to do it. There is one, but we're just illustrating how you could do. So copy this command, and we are again in our duet thing, and we are trying to say, let's see, what do you give me back with this? So what's the gcloud command to deploy my app to Cloud Run without having to containerize it? And it's giving you a pretty nice answer over here, right? That, okay, you could just tell what's the name of your service. You could change this also, and then see this. This is the key thing over here, which is you're just telling that the source is currently present from the local, whatever the current directory itself. And behind the scenes, you will see we have something called cloud build packs, which are a little bit smart. They look at your structure, the programming language, the dependencies, and then they know how to containerize these things. So actually, behind the scenes, a container is built for you using a service called Cloud Build, and we will build that. We will then deploy a service in Cloud Run, point the container to the one that's created for you, and the service is then up and running, and 100% traffic is sent to it. So you could either take this whole thing as is. Again, this is the answer we got here. The lab is also telling you something, right? That what's the command, and you're doing. By the way, you see this Duet AI in Cloud Console. So what we could also do is just come here, and maybe let's clear this, and maybe put it out here also. So you see a different surface. You might see some variation in answer, but that's fine. You'll probably even get links to some documentation. So see over here, it says go to your respective folder, which is good, and then do a deploy my app and source. It's not giving you any other details, and it's also giving you how it's doing it and any related content deploying from source. Where have we got this information? I mean, this information is useful so that you know where we got the answer from. So let's do one thing. Maybe we just take this part, right? Because we're probably in the directory already. So where are we? I'm just going to minimize this. I had started the local server, so let me close this. So I'm here. I'm obviously in my directory where that is, and I've got all the files that are required over here. So I'm going to just go ahead and say gcloud run deploy my app. Maybe instead of my app, I'll call it my app. Maybe Vipassana season 5. I hope that I got the season number correct. So I'm just saying this is my name and the source is here, but that's okay. Let's go ahead and see what happens. So now, since it needs to go in a specific region, it's telling you which region, which is fine. You could also like improve the prompt and tell it to give you some more, but that's fine. So I'll go in region 32, US Central 1. If in case you see this, please go for that. So I'll go with that. Now it's going to ask me some other thing. Allow unauthenticated invocation. You see here it had already given you to allow. So if we had used this command, we wouldn't have got to this stage. But since we didn't give it, it's telling you, is it unauthenticated? Go with yes for now, because authentication creates a different kinds of requirements. So we'll go with yes here. And now the magic happens, which is it's uploading all the sources. This is normal gcloud run deploy. It's building a container for you. And then in case you're very curious, and which you should be, you should just take this URL and see the magic that happens behind the scenes. So this is what's going on live right now while you're waiting there. So it's cloud build that's got invoked. You'll see steps, and you'll see it's actually like running this whole Maven packages, everything that you expect typically that's going on right now while building out the container. And you see the step to build out the Docker container. So that's what, just be a bit inquisitive here. It helps so that you know that it's spinning around, but don't just wait for it. You can actually see what's going on at each particular step. So obviously that spinning won't stop till each of these cloud build steps are done. If it looks pretty scary, that's fine. This is just part of the whole compile build package process. So let this go on. Build is successful. Very nice. Now it's pushing to our artifact registry that we have, because that's where our artifacts, or in this case, the Docker image will lie. Once this is done, all the ticks are happening here. Everyone is happy. Hopefully, your seats now become okay. So now that it's fine, it's creating a revision in cloud, setting the traffic, policies, etc., etc. You said unauthentication, so the all users IAM policy takes over. Takes a little bit of time, but this is normal. This is not do it. This is all about G Cloud Run. Let's go on. So everything looks fine. It's deployed something 100% traffic, and you've also got this nice little magic URL of Cloud Run. So let's see if indeed it's working from there, and it's working. So well done, do it. And this way, at least we've been able to sort of show you bit of Duet AI. What we've developed a few things, we've explained a few things, understood a few things, modified some code, got some info on Cloud Run commands, deploy commands, sorry, and then deployed it. And we're just seeing right now sort of working. So obviously this is revision one, right? I mean, you're free to now go back, make changes further, and you know now the sequence of things that happened. So that was part of the lab, which you see. It just builds this whole thing, takes a few minutes, you get a URL, and everything is fine. Of course, there are steps to deploy it, but I'll just want to show you a bit of the log analysis also, right? Now, let's see a bit of things over here, which is that let's go to our code and see hello world application Java, right? Now in this file, you'll see that there's, like, don't worry if this is not something you understand or know, or Java is not the thing, but that's fine. So we've got a logger, that object that's created out here, and then you see a few things that it's logging when it starts up. That, hey, it's just putting in an info that hello from Cloud Run, container started successfully, right? What if you could possibly even like put your own log statements if you want to, but for now you're seeing this one particular statement, logger.info, where this is going on. Now this obviously should start appearing in our logs explorer. So let's go there quickly, because the application is running. We've also hit the URL, so things should be there. So let's go to logs explorer. Will I click? Let's click. Okay, so I am in logs explorer right now. This is where all our logs are centralized. There are ways you can slice, dice, and get all this information. And hey, you're already seeing a few things, right? Which we did at around 927 types. And also things like, maybe, oops, the logs, depending upon the different statements that are out there, you will see, including we should be seeing our, what you call, um, the log that I showed you, the code, that should also be there. But to make this easier, sorry, I just got a bit flustered with some alarm ringing here. So over here, let's make it a little bit easier to navigate and dive into these things. So you can do some specific filtering. So in Cloud Run revision, we know it's a Cloud Run thing which we want to go to. Then if you scroll down, you will see several services. I have many applications, but in my case, it's the My App VS5 that we are interested, right? That's the service we deployed. So let's filter. You see this query is being built up over here. Similarly, let's go to info and just get the information based log. So you should now start seeing, you see this hello from Cloud Run, the container started successfully and is listening on, the HTTP request. This is exactly the code that if I just, where were we? If I just go back to our editor, right? This was the statement that you were seeing. So I'm just correlating the two, that the logs, now they're in Logs Explorer. Now, maybe one of the things you might want to do is also, hey, what does this really mean at times? Or for example, even other log statements, right? Because sometimes when things go wrong, or most of the times when things go wrong, you're going to obviously come to the logs to see what's going on. So we've got Duet AI now integrated for your log entry analysis. So if you click on any of these items, right? Let's say something as simple as started this, whatever. You see this stuff, explain this log entry, right? And if you click that, that's new actually. We didn't have that before. So when you click this, you should be able to predict now what it's going to do. It's going to take that log, it's going to open up your chat window on the right side and get an explanation. So see here, explain this log entry in 3 5 bullet points, and it's got the answer. It's telling you this is from a cloud run service. It's running in this. This is the very interesting thing. See this. This log entry was generated by Cloud Code Hello World, application logger, and obviously it tries to give you a few other things. Similarly, if you see some errors, right? So let's go to this info. Let's clear this. And just in case, are there any filters for errors? They are not. Maybe if I clear my Cloud Run revision right now and go back to some of the errors that have been there in the log entry. Again, I'm showing you different applications logs, but this is the same concept. So at times you might just filter for errors and you might end up saying, let's understand what this really means, right? So a container not being able to start. So as you can see over here, it's going to again bring up something, right? And maybe at times, if it works out, you can just say, how do I fix this? It's like a follow-up. And you see this now, it's giving you some sort of hints on possible ways by which you could debug this particular thing. So I'm just showing you how you could, of course, in our case, we didn't have errors that are being thrown, but just think about it. Like you could possibly be in this code somewhere here, let's say in our controller, and maybe, you could put out some statements over here, either by creating the logger error or whatever it is, and then it will come into Logs Explorer and you can get an understanding of the log entry in this particular way. So I just wanted to just correlate how you can see your logs, but now we've got this neat little feature. Again, this is powered by Duet. So we've got this explain this log entry that lets you even understand. And again, do follow-ups so you can follow things. Sorry, you can get maybe some ways to fix it or addressing it. So that's what I had in terms of the lab. I know sometimes this lab might be a little bit difficult to pull off. You just have to make sure that whatever questions you ask, the answers you got, have you incorporated them correctly? Sometimes the answers could be a little bit here there. So you just need to make sure that some of these things are right. So just go through that experience, because that's important. At least it shows you the entire thing, right from development to building, testing to deploying, and then even the analysis of the logs of any application that you might have in production. So yeah, that's what we have in terms of today's session and the lab. And of course, the last step also tells you to, maybe delete off some of the resources that you've created, because who knows, maybe if you just keep it running, or it could just acquire some cost. So better to maybe clean up the resources as it's mentioning it out to you. Yep.
Before they clean up, probably I'll detail the steps for submitting the result.
Okay.
Otherwise, miss out.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So yeah, that's pretty much what I had in terms of the lab. So if there's specific questions I can take, let me know which one, because it's probably all rolled over the place, but the specific ones I can help to answer. Yeah.
Cool. While Roman's addressing questions in the chat, I'll take about a minute or two to just explain what you'll submit as the session's result in the submission app, right? So we'll just walk through what we're going to submit. Roman, if you can open let me share my screen. You already stopped sharing. Let me do that. 1 second. Okay. I hope you're all able to see my screen. 1 sec. Where is the code lab? Let me just go to the code lab. Second. So you've all completed. If not, at least you've followed Roman complete the steps, and a lot of you were able to complete the app. And I see a lot of questions and interactive comments in the chat. So definitely, I hope a lot of you are through most of the majority of the steps. If not, please follow the code lab. The steps are pretty detailed with screenshots, so you won't be stuck anywhere, even if you are. We have a Discord channel. The link to the channel is also listed here in this doc, which I shared in the beginning. In the chat, it is also pinned. So go back and find the links, all the links that you will need with respect to today's session and all of the sessions of this particular season in this doc. This has the link to the credits, link to result submission app, links to how you use the result submission app and submit your result. If the app is not at all approving your result, irrespective of what you submit, and even if you think you've submitted the right screenshot, you can also alternatively choose to submit via the form. That is another option as well. But the best option, I would recommend you all to use the app to submit, so you can get the score right away. Otherwise, you will have to wait till 25th to get your results consolidated. And remember your lab code, use the same lab code, which is the code that you created for submitting your results at the beginning of the season throughout all your submissions. That way, the results are consolidated to the same code. How you'll generate the credits, generate the certificates based on your lab code is something that will be sent to you in email. Don't worry about it. You will get a certification link, which you can click, upload your, submit your lab code, and get your certificate generated. That will be sent to you in email. Now, going back to what you'll submit for today's session. So if you're in the code lab, go to step 9, build and deploy, scroll down. You have a step where you probably asked Duet AI, what is it? You probably copied the same thing from the prompt here, that's in the code lab, or you just typed something similar, but this is what you want to have as part of the screenshot, not just the prompt. You want this entire screenshot that you see right below. Right? So what is the gcloud command to deploy my app to Cloud Run without having to containerize, only by giving the source file, this prompt and the response. So this is a screenshot we want, as you can see right here. Let me also show that in my, I think I have it open somewhere. One second. Not there for sure. Okay, there it is. So this is what we want to submit, right? This is my prompt question and this is my response. So I'll start from here, this whole thing, right? We want to submit. You don't have to include the vertical scroll bar, but till this should be your result image submission. Use the app to submit it. How to use the app to submit it? You have an instructions video in the doc that was shared to you earlier, right? So you have the link to the app where you'll submit the result here. You have the instructions on how to submit via the app here, everything that I said before, or you can also alternatively use the form link. Also, there is a link to sign up to become innovators. Since we have completed the season with the 5 sessions, we will have, I mean, the virtual sessions are all complete. You'll probably get a bonus code lab link as part of the email, the final email that you'll get for submission of results, which you can try it out at your own time. We'll have one final ask me anything call, which is not it's not typical code Vipassana workshop kind of session. It'll be like a Q&A. You all can turn your videos on, you all can unmute and ask questions for the entire session. So that'll be in the 3rd week of March, or maybe the last week of March. We'll definitely have one session. So the lab that we won't cover as part of the virtual sessions, which you'll do on your own, you can ask questions about that lab in that particular session in the Q&A, or anything related to Code Vipassana or any other code lab that we ran through in this entire season, right? So you can ask questions, and you can use that forum to ask questions one-on-one. And there's also a meetup group. Please sign up for that and sign up to become innovators. You'll get a lot more code labs, and you also will get details about everything that's new, that's coming up, all new articles, or any service that you could try out, what is new with Google Cloud, or AI ML specific details. Everything that you want will be in your email inbox. And also you'll get an opportunity to get everything firsthand and not wait for reading updates on LinkedIn through somebody else's posts, right? So it's the best place to be part of the innovators group. And who knows, eventually you'll also be or become a potential innovator champion candidate because of all the updates and because of all the opportunities that you have and the events that are happening around you, and be part of that community. So If you're interested, please sign up for the innovators and also sign up for our meetup group, Datapreneur Social. Most of our events are virtual, so you can always join in. We have technical sessions, just like all Code Vipassana sessions are also scheduled in the meetup group. But that aside, we also have some project sadhana sessions where you build and you will get a platform to present and walk through, enable other developers or empower other developers in our community to learn from you, to learn and build with you as an instructor, with you as a speaker. So definitely that's a forum. And we'll also have entrepreneurs, tech enthusiasts, and other people from other background who are interested in technology give some talks sometimes. So it's a good group or community to be a part of. So if you're interested, please sign up in that one as well. All the details that you need about the program or the season, past seasons, that we conducted in say 2023. Everything that you need with respect to Code Vipassana is available in the codevipassana.dev website. So go in there, register if not already done. Because some of you might have just taken the meet link from the from LinkedIn post, which I just shared right before the meeting today. So you might not have registered. Please go in there and register so that you will continue to get updates about our Code Vipassana sessions, submissions, certifications, so on and so forth from GDG Cloud Kochi, of course. And finally, the link to Discord channel is right there. This is the channel that you'll use to ask questions for completing your code labs. The leads team will be able to answer your questions, take questions, and in the chat in the channel. It's pretty active always. So yeah, feel free to utilize that forum to complete your code labs and submit your results. And I hope Roman was able to answer some of the questions in the chat. If not, I would like to give it back to Roman. But before that, just one last thing. Like always, I want to take a moment to thank all our leads. I'm not able to navigate back to my meeting window. Okay, there it is. I think I'm back here. I want to take a moment to thank all the leads. Let me call out if they are in the meeting still. Yeah, we have Anush, Arko, Bharat, Harshal. Sorry if I missed out anybody. I'm just scrolling through. Mohan, Mohit. Who did I miss out? I think Ruby joined a little bit. Subranil. All right, and few more would have joined before and might have dropped off. But yeah, thanks to all the community leads, because without them we wouldn't be able to run this session successfully. They are there in every step of the program, and they are with you. They communicate with you. They actually voice out your opinion. Sometimes they'll feel like, okay, this code lab, this project is difficult, or this is how I did it, or this code lab is fine until then, after that it gets stuck because of this particular issue, or maybe we look at it differently. All that kind of feedback. And they also help with networking with the community. They post and they spread the word. They have great creators as well, in addition to being tech enthusiasts. And some of them are working professionals, engineers who are already in companies and organizations and startups, and some of them are students as well, just like most of you in the call today. So thanks to all the leads for taking time to volunteer for the community, and truly standing as leaders and helping us all out in this entire program. Again, thank you so much, Roman. Of course, again, no introduction needed. Thanks, Roman, for the session today. It was very useful, and I see a lot of comments. And one thing I noticed is the pace. I think at peak we were about 100 developers, and only 30 dropped off towards the end. And I think that's because we just shot over by 15 minutes. But that's a good showcase of how hooked they are in your session. So over to you, Roman, if you want to speak a few words.
No, thanks for that, and thanks for being patient throughout this session. So, yeah, use Duet. It's quite interesting. I think we have to start using these tools. So, I encourage everyone to try out some prompts. At times, you'll also have some humorous moments with some responses, but that's okay. So, but keep using it, and thanks a lot for this opportunity to talk to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Roman. I think some of you want the link to the Google Docs again, so I'm going to just share it one more time right here and pin it. Okay, there you go. I hope that's what you asked for, Satnam. All right. Recording link will be made available probably after a few hours because it'll take some, it's a lengthy recording, so it'll take at least a couple of hours to process and for me to then connect again to upload it. So definitely it will be done. You'll receive a mail once the link is uploaded, the videos recording is uploaded. For those who have issues with the score, like for example, Mehak is saying she submitted 5, but the score is showing 4. Please feel free to ping your lab code. I'll just stick around for 3 more minutes. Please ping your lab codes and I'll take a look at it. If you feel that your response is not recorded, you can always submit the missing one and or submit all 5 in the form using the form again. That's not a problem. Harry, actually the 7 was not 7 was it was rating what you submitted, but that's not what we want. We want the number of I wanted to change the score to show only the number of submissions you've made. So 5 is accurate. Don't worry about it. Sanjana, what you need to submit after each session is updated in the session detail. Please go and take a look at that. If required, I'll include what you need to submit in the final email that you will receive probably tomorrow. Cool. Anurag, I'm glad your score got fixed. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'll just stick around for 2 minutes if anyone wants to update their lab code for me to check. Thank you, Roman. Thank you. Cool. A score of 5 is accurate, actually. So that's not a problem. Ankit, what's your issue with the why are you sending me your lab code? Yeah, I know. Regarding score, what is the issue regarding score? Is it missing? Your score is wrong? Okay, Arjun, let me take a look for sure. Avilash, yeah, go ahead and ask your question. Sagar, all the recordings you can find here in codevipassana.dev. Sorry, the spelling is wrong. So it's code Vipassana, not CPD. Same answer, Ravish. All the details of the code labs, the recording, what you need to submit, the screenshot, everything is there in the landing page. Soumya, just now we were discussing about this. If you're not able to submit via the app, feel free to submit using the form. Cool. All right, folks. We are way over time, but still, thank you so much for staying back and thank you for your questions. Okay, Avilash's question applied for Duet AI event. Okay, Duet AI event. This is fully marketing managed. The event, right? Those registrations are marketing managed, so I can't help right away. But if you feel that I don't okay, let me see what I can do. Let me see what I can do, Avilash. I'll ping you on LinkedIn if anything changes. Okay, thank you. Ankit, I see your error. Are you trying to submit for the same session that you have submitted in the past, or the format is wrong? It should be in JPG format. That's not possible. You should be able to submit it. Make sure you're choosing the right session number, season number, session number, and step number. I mean, of course, there's only one step, so step won't be wrong. Check if you're choosing the right session number. Do we have what to submit for the session in Code Lab? Yes, yes, it is there in the, not in the Code Lab, it is there in the session details page. And you would have received an email from me as a reminder from the program, the RSVP site, as a reminder before the session started, 3 hours before the session started. That also would have included what you need to submit. If not, you will get an email anyway. Along with the recording, you will get what you need to submit. So don't worry, that is there. It is there as part of it will be there as part of the session detail in the landing page as well. All right. Perfect, everybody. Thank you so much for being with us. And we'll have one Ask Me Anything session in the last week, probably. All right. So we'll talk more. Thank you so much, everybody. Yeah, yeah. I'll check your score. Okay. Bye.